tomorrow's news today.
Welcome to this Tuesday, April 28th, 2026 transmission. This is our third to last broadcast out of this famous facility in the last 17 years. InfoWars has been around, obviously, since 1996. I've been on the air since 94, 32 years. Obviously, the transmission against tyranny will continue, basically completely unabated. And we've survived so many attempts to shut us down. People don't take this serious. When we do shut down Thursday night at midnight, people are going to flip out. And that's everything at Real Alex Jones on X and Rumble, the Alex Jones Show, and on all the same radio stations. In fact, more stations want us. We're over 450 radio stations now. Funny how the Streisand effect works. So thank you so much for joining us. Hey, it's not 3 a.m. I didn't have my button undone on purpose. Sorry. We're back at midnight now, where I like to stay. Welcome to the long end of the night, end of the night. Take a journey to the bright midnight, end of the line, end of the night. I'm in a good mood because I'm starting to see a trend, and I track this. They're starting to indict mid-level, a whole bunch of them, and some super high-level individuals in the original deep state. My concern is Trump's just trying to become the new swamp. But this is big. David M. Marins, senior advisor to Dr. Fauci and all the bad guys, has been indicted for lying about gain of function. So Senator Paul's finally getting some traction on that. And if the indictments, and I haven't had a chance to read them yet, but I've obviously read the ones on Southern Poverty Law Center, those are real, those are hardcore. They're hitting them right where they can prove it. And if this was followed through on, I mean, this is so big, going to the heart of the big pharma mad scientist complex, that I don't think they even would do a fake indictment. And by fake, I mean one where it's just for consumption, but they drop it later or lose it on purpose. This is big. This is a big deal. And it's interesting. I already had a bunch of news from congressional hearings and scientists coming out where we knew this 5 years ago, but I'm watching C-SPAN, and they've got senators up there with top scientists. No, they knew it would kill everybody, and they covered it up, so it must be intentional. I mean, it's just amazing. And cancer exploding off the charts, stuff that Edward Dowd told us 4 years ago. But top Fauci advisor indicted by DOJ on charges of concealing COVID records. And this goes right to Fauci, who hasn't been seen in almost a year in public. So this is splendidly delicious and nutritious for liberty. But we got some really crazy Iran news from the White House and the Secretary of Treasury, Bessent. He's like, don't worry, we've won the war. In 4 months, they'll be out of money because their oil's blocked. Oh, only 4 more months. What could possibly go wrong? This is so wonderful. You know, I've been covering the DOJ and their activities for over 3 decades, so I've learned to look at the indictments. I've learned to look at the press conferences. I've learned to then look when the U.S. attorneys and others make statements on TV on whether or not they're really going after somebody or whether it's just for public consumption and whether or not they got the goods. And all the body language last week with Southern Poverty Law Center and the indictment spelled, this is a great white shark going for the seal's neck. And I was told by my sources, they said, oh, no, they got a bunch more coming. So when Kash Patel was on TV saying, oh, a bunch of indictments across the border coming, I said, is this just him because he wants to cover up, the story about him drinking, which I do think's overblown. I mean, he's at a hockey game when they win, drinking beer, and obviously that's what you do. I mean, okay, big secret there. That's what you do at a hockey game. I'm not a big defender of Kash Patel, as you all know, but I'm not going to slam dunk on him on non-issues. So I said, hopefully this is true. I said, I'm not an idiot. I'm not just going to sit there and believe it's going to happen, but let's see. Well, I tracked the news, and they've been mainly indicting low-level people at all different levels of corruption, but mainly Democrat, deep state operatives. Now they've moved into mid-level and upper mid-level and then even high-level. And this indictment of David M. Marins, top advisor to Fauci and basically all the bad guys, for covering up, destroying evidence of gain of function, which, again, he may have deleted his email, but others didn't, where they're like, let's cover this up. We're meeting with the CIA to cover up that it was made in the lab. It was made in Chapel Hill under an Obama national initiative. It was a scandal in 2015, so they moved it to Wuhan so they could blame it on China. And look, I'm no fan of the Communist Chinese, but they didn't release this. They certainly used it for control and certainly helped with the Democrats run a hysteria campaign, you know, with all the fear-mongering, so they were involved at that level. But no, this was made in the USA. We have the patents, we have the numbers. There have been so many experts and scientists that have brought that out. It's really incredible how open and shut this is. I mean, I had Dr. Francis Boyle, the guy that wrote the U.S. Chemical and Biological Weapons Laws, top UN war crimes prosecutor, on in late January, early February. He's died last year. What a great person.
I've been
him for 25 years. And I'm so busy, I didn't know until 6 months after he was dead, hit me like, I said, hey, get Boyle on. They go, sir, he's dead. We put it in your stack back at the time. I guess I didn't see it. I was like, so when people think I'm not covering something, it's usually because I missed it. I miss a lot. That I will admit. I get a lot right, but I miss a lot. I'm about 1 trillion light years away from God's omnipresence. Now, compared to a low information news viewer, I'm light years ahead of them. But the point is that he laid out the patents, how they did it, where they did it, how they did it all, what was going to happen, and how the shot would be the real weapon, and he aced it. Well, it's because he knows all the classified information. He doesn't get on the air and say, here's classified information. He just gives you a summary of it. And he has, or had, all the sources. So as soon as he was going to testify against Bill Gates in the civil/criminal trial in the Netherlands, he died 1 week before. But side issue. The point is that Fauci has been caught red-handed in Congress saying, we've never done gain of function, when he put on symposiums that were on C-SPAN, we played them here, clips of it, 2, 3 years before, 5 years before, saying, in support of gain of function. He wrote papers with that name. And you have the vice president of Pfizer famously caught by James O'Keefe. And as soon as I saw that, I said, they're gonna kick James O'Keefe out of Veritas. It turned out payments were made by Pfizer, and that's exactly what happened. Later came out in court. Within a month of that, he was kicked out over nothing. And when I saw the vice president of Pfizer, the head of global mRNA, say, oh, we made it all in labs. We've got a bunch of versions. We're just going to release new ones a few times a year forever, and that's our profit margin. And that's how we guarantee profit. I mean, but it's not just like he was bragging, to another guy he thought was a gay dude, who was James O'Keefe with blonde hair coloring in and glasses. We already know that's true, because they even go and register it and patent the damn thing under COVID-19 and other variants. So this is absolutely known, and that's what's so frustrating. So when Fauci got up before Congress and goes, that is a ridiculous lie, Senator Paul. I have never been involved in gain of function. The U.S. government has never done that in its entire history, and I cannot believe you would accuse me. It is you that is a liar, Senator. And I'm just watching this, and I'm like, goodness gracious. This is unbelievable levels of horse manure. But only if you're totally uninformed would you not know this. So, why have they indicted him? Well, covering up gain of function. And because I've already covered these before, his emails and Fauci's. We've got to get ahead of this and shut this down. I'm meeting with the CIA next week for an entire week. We're working with the media. We're going to call it a conspiracy theory, but get rid of all your emails. These guys are doing this on email. And it's because they've been committing crimes so long, he ran the whole AIDS thing 40-something years ago, that they think they're invincible. But notice, you don't ever see him on TV no more, or even Hotez, his little mini-me, because they know their lies aren't working. That's why I said last year, right before Midnight Hammer in July, I said, they're not going to do the new bio release right now because it's not working. People won't buy into it. They'll know they're behind it. Even if a real thing came along, no one's going to buy that it's not them. It'll be a war. It'll be Iran. And you see the consequences of that, which I'll be getting to. I forgot to tell the crew before the show. They're grabbing it now. I was getting some coffee and saw Treasury Secretary on Fox. And he's like, hey, good news, we've beaten Iran. The rats are cornered. They're totally defeated. In 4 months, they'll be out of money from oil sales. Well, that's kind of counting your chickens before they're hatched, which I wish was true. I wish they'd have fallen the first day. No fan of the mullahs, but also no fan of the strait being closed and the documented shocks that would cause, sending up inflation and interest rates, which is now happening, which kills the Trump recovery plan. So America goes bankrupt and BlackRock wins. That's why people that just foolishly said, you just should get with the program and not demoralize our troops. Demoralize them, they're not stupid. The Joint Chiefs of Staff told Trump not to do it. They fired the head of the Army a few weeks ago when he said, we need hundreds of thousands of troops to invade Iran, not 20,000. Trump does not like hearing that. And Trump does not know what he's talking about when it comes to military. He'll even admit that. I don't know how it works, but they're incredible people. I've seen Levin all the time goes, I'm not a military guy. I don't really understand it all, but I know that I believe in our troops. Lindsey Graham. All I know is I believe in the Marines. And the host is like, 2,000 Marines are going to invade this heavily fortified area? We had a lot more down in Iwo Jima. Yeah, 110,000 for one island. He goes, I believe in our Marines. And now Trump's like, oh, yesterday they told me they're in a state of collapse. Well, so was Vietnam when we dropped 7.6 million bombs on them. We've only dropped 20,000 on them. So for the sake of everybody, and the sake of the economy, and the sake of no more loss of life, I wish the mullahs would fall. Like I said 60 days ago. You know, how many days ago? It was February 28th when it happened, but I was up in the morning covering it live on the 1st of March. So that's like 60 days. And I just think it's more of the same hopium we've been given over and over and over and over and over again. So yeah, you can blockade them and that shuts them down. And then that creates a chain reaction, shut down the rest of the world economy. And people can go, well, that ups our oil exports. Yeah, but it still creates a chain reaction in all the other goods and services that drives up inflation. So it doesn't just negate that or create a draw. Every major economist and actuary shows it kills the recovery. So it is a bad idea. But don't worry, Larry Fink of BlackRock loves it because he wants the whole world in debt because he's going to loan them fiat currency back. So as soon as we have that clip, I want to get it and play it. Now, back to this Fauci top henchman, or really his propagandist, the man that comes up with most of his propaganda, ex-Fauci top advisor indicted over alleged COVID cover-up, hidden emails. And again, they have this all on Fauci too. We've covered it ad nauseum. It's ridiculous. The lying to Congress, the destruction of evidence, the talking about how they were going to do it. I mean, it is wild. So why would the DOJ do this if they weren't really getting ready to go after him? Because Trump knows, and I don't just defend Trump, I know how it worked. They had this on the shelf for years. Hillary was playing the COVID release. Then Trump got in, and so they tricked him to go along with warp speed and the rest of it. He wasn't for the lockdowns, tried to pull out of it. Democrats stole the election with mail-in ballots. Then they put in maximum lockdown control. So it's a lesser of two evils with Trump on that front. And he's had Kennedy doing a lot of good in there, going after the poison shots. So I've been just calling balls and strikes. But now with this, if this starts panning out, which the cut of the jib, you know, the look of this thing looks like it's a serious move, then wow, I would look for more fireworks, like I said last week. We're starting to already see those. So this is very, very exciting. Here's a Fox News clip about the indictment.
Former top advisor to Dr. Anthony Fauci now facing criminal charges. This over an alleged cover-up involving research into the origins of COVID. Rich Edson on this story. Intriguing, Rich. What you find out there in Washington?
Yeah, it is, Bill. The Justice Department has charged David Morins, a doctor, with conspiracy, claiming he concealed federal records to counter evidence that COVID-19 may have leaked from a lab in China, all to help restore a controversial coronavirus grant. Morins, a former aide to Dr. Anthony Fauci, testified before the House's COVID Select Subcommittee nearly 2 years ago about emails he'd sent in February 2021, claiming that he'd learned to make emails disappear after he received Freedom of Information Act requests.
Ever delete or attempt to delete a federal record? No, but let me explain why. When I came there in 1998, we were instructed to delete emails or to move them into PST files frequently because they jammed the computer.
The Justice Department says Morenz used his personal Gmail account to exchange non-public information. The indictment also claims an unnamed co-conspirator gave Morenz wine for his, quote, behind-the-scenes shenanigans, then suggested he could push scientific commentary in a prominent medical journal advocating that COVID-19 had natural origins. That's a competing claim with the lab leak theory. The indictment says the co-conspirator could also provide meals at top restaurants in Paris, New York, and Washington, D.C. In April 2020, the NIH terminated that BAC coronavirus grant awarded to EcoHealth Alliance, who then contracted the Wuhan Institute of Virology to conduct that research in China. From the start of the pandemic, its president, Peter Daszak, worked to discredit any theory that COVID-19 had leaked from that lab.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Rich. More to come. Rich Edson on that story from Washington, D.C. Thank you.
But they're using China as a firewall to say, okay, the cover-up is that it was man-made and that China did it. China did not do it. It was called COVID-19. It was made with a bunch of other nasties at Chapel Hill, North Carolina, working with Rice University in Texas, University of Texas at Galveston, and a bunch of other universities. And it was under an initiative. That means Obama ordered it in 2014. And by 15, scientists blew the whistle. It was headline news that they're making gain of function with SARS viruses. And then we learned the damn name of the one they finally isolated and patented so they can make money off of it with the vaccine, COVID-19. You want to just look that up, you type in, government documents show that COVID-19 was already listed and named by 2018. That's right, a couple years before it showed up. It's listed by the IMF and World Bank. These people are sick. Here's a report out of the Highwire. 4 independent databases, 3 countries, have now confirmed that COVID shots induce cancer. And of course, Congress heard this from the documents that have come out from Pfizer. They tried to suppress for 75 years, but the judge ordered them released. They still only released a fraction of them. And they knew explosive increases in cancer, blood clots, myocarditis, strokes, infertility, you name it. And it erases your immune system and makes you get every other virus way easier. That's why suddenly we have worse colds in the summer. You ever heard of summer colds? Very rare before. Now, I get them in the summer. People go, well, you didn't take the COVID shot. No, but these other people have the raced immune system, so these viruses just run wild. It mutates a bunch of viruses. It's crazy. And all statistics show that. And I know you're out there nodding your head. I used to get sick like every 3 years. Right after COVID now, I'll be in the summer getting fevers and viruses and crap, even though I eat really healthy. It's because it's shedding all over us. Most people that never even took the shot have the spike protein in them unless you do the detoxes. It's just amazing. So here's a clip on the databases. Here it is.
This should be front page news absolutely everywhere. The gold standard cancer surveillance system confirms the mRNA injections were indeed inducing cancer. Brain tumors were up 19% in those under 50 years old. Central nervous system tumors, breast cancer, stomach cancer. The biggest one was colon cancer, 19% higher. And yeah, it's very worrisome, and it corroborates all 3 independent analyses, 3 of them, 2 of them in different countries. One was in Italy with 300,000 people. They found the mRNA injections increased the risk of 3 distinct types of cancers and overall cancer hospitalizations by 23%. And then we had the study in South Korea with 8 million people and 8.4 million. And they found those increased risks of 6 major cancers, comparing vaccinated to unvaccinated. And lastly, there was another analysis of different CDC data, CDC mortality data, and he found 138,000 excess cancer deaths in the United States alone since 2021. So yeah, these injections appear to have induced a cancer epidemic.
And those numbers are even whitewashes. Now with these government databases, it's confirmed what Edward Dowd said 4 years ago with his insurance analysis. At the time he said, I have a whistleblower, is one of the top analysis analysts in the world, and then they went public 6 months later to Congress, was like the top guy. 40% increase in all the Western countries that took the shot of under 45s. 40% increase in all case mortality. And you got graphs country by country. Right when the first shot comes in, starts going up. The next shot, boom, explodes even more. Next shot, boom, even more. It is dramatic. And remember, just weeks and months after the shots were given, you saw all these reporters and politicians and sports people collapsing. Here's a short compilation of that.
Gordon, you okay? Oh my gosh.
It's okay, babe. I am not feeling well.
First it starts to get really nice.
What? Montana? What are you doing? Montana?
One of those big clots of self-replicating nano spike protein, patented by Fauci 40-something years ago, and on record, part of the virus and the vaccine goes through your brain. Well, doesn't feel too good. A lot of times you die or you get massive brain damage. All right, we're going to get into the Strait of Hormuz, the big developments there. The UAE leaving OPEC because of the war in a major blow to the West and where that's going. Then we're going to look at Rubio's response to all of this. And then we're going to look at the domestic numbers, more polls from scientific groups we trust have been proven right that Trump's approval rating is the all-time lowest it's ever been. And they have asked people what they're mad about, and it's everything we've told you they're mad about. So we had the best pollster, Mark Mitchell, on a lot 8 months ago, 6 months ago, a few months ago, he's on soon, going through all of this, and he's just horrified. And J.D. Vance was concerned and had him come up and talk to Trump about 6 months ago, but didn't work. Don't attack your constituents, keep inflation down, don't have a war, and don't cover up Epstein. That's what people don't like. And now the new ISET is saying we're going to back down on enforcement. I mean, I got that. Not good. Not good because it's the wrong policies for the country, and it'll make us lose the damn midterms, people. But don't worry. We're inconsequential and have no power, Trump says, people he attacks, but we're going to lose the midterms. No, you're doing a good job of that without our help. You think I want the Democrats to win? They want to throw me under the prison. All right, we're going to break. Today, tomorrow, and then Thursday, we're going to go late in the evening is potentially, and I think it is, the last time we're here because the state receiver is not paying the light bill, the power bill, any of the internet. Stuff's already turning off. We might not make it till Thursday night. I hope we do. But the new Alex Jones Network's ready. You can find everything in the links there. Won't miss a beat if you get the free app at alexjonesapp.com. You can also see the links to the new news sites and everything at Real Alex Jones on X, right up there pinned to the top of the page. And stations, all the same stations have been told, the satellite link and all the rest of it. So thanks to the crew doing a great job and all the listeners supporting us so that we can stay on air regardless of what the deep state tries. And financial support, ladies and gentlemen. But again, that's alexjonesapp.com. Maybe we should put the URL up there. But this is the last chance to get original InfoWars T-shirts, ball caps, those very popular Faraday cage bags. Well, we have an InfoWars version, and it's already half of them sold out via limited supply since we launched it yesterday. And it comes with a whole bunch of really cool stuff inside of it as well. Free InfoWars dog tag and America 250 silver coin collectible. All of that inside the bag, all grand total together, $249. These bags sell routinely for more than that. Again, Faraday cage bag, high quality. That is an insane deal. And it's going to sell out very, very quickly. Then again, we have all the original InfoWars gear that we may not be able to sell in the future. We're definitely going to suspend it for a while until we see what's going on here. If they actually are able to do this hostile takeover, won't be able to do that. So it could be your last chance to get this original gear. There's also all of the amazing supplements, the ultramethylene blue, the Shilajit, all of it. And all of that will still be available because I don't own the AlexJonesStore.com. They own all those great products that are the very best, and they are our big sponsor and on the Alex Jones Network. So there you go. Be sure and support the next leg of the next chapter of the Info War now by going to the AlexJonesStore.com. Be the reason the bad guys can't take us off the air. But the apparel's great, the Faraday bag's great, all that stuff's great. But what's really awesome is the supplements. Get yours now, the AlexJonesStore.com. We'll be right back. All right, I want to explain this to listeners. I know most of you know this better than I, but we're talking to the folks that aren't up to speed yet. They're important. This is an information war. It's a war on firm mind. I make a lot of predictions, and I'm very well known for almost all of them coming true. And some of them are very hard to make. And those really hard ones, I'll have a lot of data and a lot of research, a lot of prayer, and then a final analysis will come to me. I can feel God's hand on my shoulder, and then I'll make these predictions that are just spectacularly over the top crazy. Like they're going to fly planes in the World Trade Center and blame bin Laden and then set up a police state and attack all these countries. Call the White House, tell them don't do it. That's an incredible prediction. The fact that the mullahs wouldn't fall and that they'd shut down the Strait of Hormuz and that would then jackknife our recovery, that's every piece of that is Pentagon analysis, major think tank war games that are extremely accurate. This is something massively studied. And they told them 92% chance the mullahs don't fall for 6 months to a year, and they will close the strait, and then that will cause massive inflation and endanger the recovery plan. And that's what Tulsi Gabbard told him. It's what Joe Kent told him. It's what the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Kane, told him. And I just go back to this. I have been massively attacked by neocons and neocon converts, pretty big talk show hosts, huge ones, you name it. I mean, the usual suspects, Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, but a lot of people that I thought were my friends, calling me a Qatari agent with no evidence, a criminal, an idiot, a panicker. I was right, you were wrong, okay? And this isn't about being right. It's about not destroying our country and our recovery. And the globalists that want us to go into irrevocable debt, we were on the edge of bankruptcy till Trump launched his economic plan, and it was an excellent plan. And it was succeeding. Now it's falling apart. All the inflation numbers have come in. This is horrible. This isn't just some recession that we're going to have. This will be our country in default. We're already having our credit rating lowered. Do you understand that? The globalists have been maneuvering us like a third world country to this point of financial oblivion, and that comes with all the social credit scores and all the slavery with it. So when I see different talk shows go, oh, Jones only cares about money, short-term pain, long-term gain. It isn't short-term pain, long-term gain. And then Israel's emboldened all their top ministers that are in the Likudnik coalition. That's the majority of them. I played you dozens of clips. They're all over TV saying, and when we win against Iran, next is all of Lebanon and Turkey. And then we'll be drug into war with those people. And Turkey's got the biggest conventional military in Europe. You count Russia part of Europe, the second largest. I mean, that is just crazy town. Absolute, total, bonkers, howl at the moon, just over the top. I don't have words to describe this. So Iran wants to break up the OPEC coalition. That's been their plan. That's their strategy. And now the UAE, one of the most powerful members of OPEC, has left. Not today, not just in a blow to Saudi Arabia, but a blow to the entire coalition. And it shows that they can't take the economic crises they're under. Now they're asking for a gigantic bailout from the United States, and Trump says he's going to do it. These are just some of the ramifications. 60 days into the war, 45 days into the strait being essentially closed. And now the numbers are coming in compounded. And the numbers are always a few weeks old. So the numbers from 30 days into the thing being shut down, we're now like 45. The war is 60. Is huge inflation, huge energy price increases, massive famine, because a third of the world's fertilizer is not going through. I mean, this was guaranteed, and now we are deep into it, and we are sinking into the quicksand very quickly. And Rubio's like, well, there's extremists in the government that won't work with us. And then, yeah, what'd you think when you killed their leaders? The way Iran's set up, that even more radicals are the ones positioned under them. I could have told you, in fact, I did, don't kill the mullah, as Israel's saying, that'll make them fight harder. I mean, come on, people, this is basic psychology, sociology. You got to study who you're fighting. So we dropped 7.6 million bombs on Vietnam over 15 years, and we lost. We dropped 20,000 bombs on them, and look, we blew up a lot of stuff. Okay. So now Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, goes out as the mouth of Trump for the upteenth time and says, we've basically won, they're cornered. In 4 months, they'll go completely bankrupt. And their oil's backed up because they can't ship it. And so all their containers are full. And if they cut production, that can really mess up future oil, which is true. Those type of oil wells, if you cut them off, then it's hard to get them back going. Just because the way the hydrology and all of it's very complex, the way it works. And I know that's a fact. You stop production on a well that's even been doing good for 20 years. A lot of times you stop it for a few months, it won't come back. And you got to wait a decade till it comes back. But when a well gets down too low, then they'll kill production. And then depending on the soil and the geology, it could take years or decades to come back, but they almost always come back. I remember my mom's mom owned, that her dad gave her some oil wells out in East Texas. She always gave all the money to the church. I'd be fine with her giving 10%. But when we read her records after she died, that's how much she'd given to churches and how frugal she lived. I said, I never planned to live off inheritance, but darn, it'd been nice to get some of that. But it's okay. The point was, she's a good, great lady, died at 92. But I remember being like a teenager, and she's reading the stuff at the table. They were always talking about business to inform people. And she's like, oh, they're shutting down production on those. My grandfather that worked in oil all the way from roughneck to leasehound to executive, he looks at her and goes, Benny, that doesn't matter. In 10, 20 years, it'll come in even bigger. And I remember by the time before she died, those wells had all come back producing, some of them better than when they drilled them in the 1950s. But I don't know why I'm giving a lesson on that. The point is it's true that if they cut production or stop production on those wells, that most of them will slow down or stop. And then it might take a year, 10, 20 years till it. That's the thing about oil. It's not fossil fuel, folks. There was some wells produced by fossil fuel, but most of it, they don't know where it comes from. It just keeps refilling. It's amazing, actually. So most petroleum geologists now agree, this is a consensus, that it's not fossil fuel. I mean, can you find coal deposits where you'll see a imprint of a fern leaf and you know it came from a jungle? Yeah, that's part of it. And coal does tend to be ancient swamps and things compressed with carbon in it. So some of it is fossil fuel, but most of it's not. Very, very fascinating and an incredible mystery. Thank God God gave us all this incredible stuff, because everything you use has oil in it. Almost everything. This table, the jacket I'm wearing, the shirt, just the stapler right here, this phone, the bottle that these supplements are in. Well, I don't need to give you a lesson on that. You already know that. But here's Bessent declaring victory, basically, but saying, oh, in 4 months, they'll be out of money. I mean, I could get more economists on, and I've gotten their reports here today. 4 more months of this? 4 more months the Strait of Hormuz closed? Yeah, the mullahs might fall, but that's called a Pyrrhic victory. Guys, pull up where the term Pyrrhic victory comes from. This is a good little history lesson. Just put it in Google AI, and I'll read what it says here. I'll know if it's accurate or not. But there were a lot of societies in ancient times and in modern times that could win a war, but it later brought down their empire or their country. So it's like a knife fight where you stab the guy a bunch and he falls over dead and you leave, but then you get an infection and die 2 months later. So it's probably already too late for the recovery, but Trump got so many incredible investments here, which he did an A+ on, he did a 100 on, it still might be able to be overridden. That's what Dr. Elliott thinks. The Pyrrhic victory originated from King Cyrus of Epirus during the campaigns against the Roman Republic in southern Italy between 280 and 275 BC. That's for the rise of the Roman Republic. So they were just taking over what's Italy today. Pyrrhus won costly battles at Heraclea in 20 BC and, I always say this stuff Latin wrong, I'm sorry, in Greek, Asculum in 279 BC. Despite these tactical wins, his forces were so severely depleted that he famously stated, if we were victorious in one more battle, we surely would be utterly ruined. And then it ended up making him fall later. So, yeah, it's like you put a champion pit bull in, or rooster, in a cockfight, and it beats the other rooster, and okay, and then 2 days later, your rooster dies from wounds. I mean, it's like, okay, you won, but you really didn't. And that's why BlackRock's happy, because it'll kill the Trump plan that was going against the overall austerity plan. And this will affect everybody, and I'm correct. And you've got all the reports on the White House. They've been freaking out even a month ago, telling Trump he's got to get off the off-ramp. And it just gets worse by the day. And then Rubio, tell us something we don't know. Rubio, oh, they're extremists. It doesn't make sense. We were giving them a good deal. They won't give up. Yeah. Do you think we'd give up? I don't know any culture that was ever great previously that doesn't, even when they get decadent, get attacked by an outside group and don't buck up to the challenge. I mean, Hitler thought bombing civilians would make the British give up. It made them go from 10% support of the war to 95% overnight. So they're like, oh, they're extremists. Yeah, I don't agree with their ideology or their religion or any of that stuff, but they're definitely tough sons of bitches, and they've been studied before they were Muslims. The Persians will fight your ass, and they're not stupid. So we got a tiger by the tail, folks. And everybody that pushed this, and every time Trump declares victory, see, 20 trillion D chess, Alex, you panicking dumbass. And there's no logic. Like, how many times you guys are wrong? And it's not that I mind being criticized. I cut my teeth on that. I'm worried about you people out there. It's usually the left is completely delusional out of their minds, and they still are. Now you've joined them attacking people that actually know what they're talking about. It's too fun for you to call me an Iranian agent. While Israel, a foreign power, brags they're running our foreign policy and don't give a damn about our interest. And even say, oh, when America goes bankrupt from this war, we'll be the new center of the world. Cuckoo, cuckoo, total cuckoo town. Guys, I didn't get enough water. Somebody bring me water because I'm kind of parched here. Thank you. I'm not a big hoity-toity guy that doesn't get my own water and coffee, except I'm stuck here in the chair, so my voice starts going on. I got to go, give me water, give me water. That's how provincial and commoner I am. I don't even like telling crew, get me water. Imagine these other elitists just totally used to having their chair pulled out, chair pushed in, everyone kissing their ass constantly. That's what we got with King Charles here and the media fawning over him when he's the antithetical opposite of what this country's supposed to be. But I'm sorry, I'm digressing. Let's get to the Treasury Secretary. Here he is.
Iran could reportedly run out of storage capacity within 12 to 22 days. Daily shipments have fallen to about 567,000 barrels, a massive decline from 1.85 million last month. Production could be cut by 1.5 million barrels a day by mid-May. And that's not just big money on those days. Long range, that means that the wells get shut in because they won't be pumping as much to take the oil out of the ground and put it on ships and keep everything moving. It is an economic disaster for them.
And Harris, the Kepler analysis predicts that it'll take about 3 to 4 more months for Iran to really see an impact on its oil revenues from this U.S. blockade of Iranian ports. But the president says that this blockade has been, quote, unbelievably effective. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent writing on X, quote, Iran's creaking oil industry is starting to shut in production thanks to the U.S. blockade. Pumping will soon collapse. Gasoline shortages in Iran next. The question now is whether the president is willing to continue the blockade until Iran's economy collapses, perhaps forcing them into a deal, or whether the president will resume military strikes. Iran International reports Iran's Supreme National Security Council held a meeting concerned about its economy. Quote, officials believe mounting economic hardship driven by rising prices, unemployment, and damage to key industries such as petrochemicals and steel could become the main trigger for renewed protests. Secretary of State Marco Rubio told Fox that Iran's deeply fractured leadership is a roadblock for a peace deal and that any deal with the U.S. must prevent Iran from getting a nuclear bomb.
Yeah, I think they're serious about figuring out how can they buy themselves more time. We can't let them get away with it. They're very good negotiators. They're very experienced negotiators. And we have to ensure that any deal that is made, any agreement that is made, is one that definitively prevents them from sprinting towards a nuclear weapon at any point.
So let's unpack that. Let's unpack that. All of that. So we're really hurting them bad, but it'll take 4 more months, and who knows if that's even true, but they're hurting us bad. And then, oh, their leadership's so fractured, we can't get a deal because you killed so many of them. I thought killing their leadership would make it easier, but I told you it wouldn't. And I thought Midnight Hammer last year got rid of their nukes when I said it didn't. They go, well, then we should get them. Oh, come on. Everybody's got the damn thing now. Rubio says Iranian hardliners, this is a quote, with apocalyptic vision of the future are complicating peace talks. Really? Because they're the leadership. I mean, it's just, when you know the facts, it's all nonsensical. Yeah, they're trapped like drowning rats, says Basent. Well, we're drowning in inflation. UAE to leave OPEC amid Hormuz oil crisis, a blow to Saudi Arabia. United Arab Emirates announced today that it would exit the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, along with the wider group of partners known as OPEC, effective May 1st, in what would be a blow to control over prices by the group, long led in practice by Saudi Arabia. So, why are they leaving? So they're not targeted by Iran. That's a big victory for Iran. And now the UAE is wanting giant bailouts from us. But you didn't know the Iranians, we have bases there, were going to hit us? That was what Trump was told in the war games is going to happen. These will be Iran's moves. They're probably going to work. Because they're not vertically integrated in their command structure. They are parallel. And so you could kill hundreds of mullahs. They got thousands of them. If you're related to Muhammad, they got all the genealogy, you can be the mullah. And do you think the guys under them? No, studies were done. They're even worse. All these people have had their families killed. Most of these guys in command, you see, have like arms and legs blown off from the fighting the CIA-backed Iraq war in the 80s. Full proxy war. We killed 2 million of them. They kept coming, and Iraq lost. And they didn't have the weapons they have now. I'm trying to talk them up. I'm just being honest with everybody here. That's why when I talk to family that worked high level in CENTCOM 15 years ago, 10 years ago, you name it, they were like, they would never get anything classified. They were just like, oh, yeah, no. We did not go to war with Iran. Israel wants it. It is not good. It just, all the scenarios are bad because of where they are, what they're able to do. We just need to contain them and make a deal with them. But I mean, who am I? You think you're hanging around with guys who worked in CENTCOM forever at the highest levels, and you're the guys, tell me a war story. Tell me, I'm not doing that. I'm telling me, tell me about Iran. Tell me about the region. Tell me about the different Muslim groups. Tell me who you really got your orders from. And that's how you learn stuff, folks. So I don't just read the analysis of economists and experts. I didn't just believe the Pentagon report telling Trump it's not a good idea. I knew what the Pentagon said was accurate. I know I keep harping on it. I just can't believe how illogical I'd say a third of MAGA is now, just drooling and just thinking that if you just support any type of war or destruction, it's a good thing. Now, here is a former highly decorated Delta Force commander, Pete Blabber, on the Sean Ryan show, explaining very eloquently just how evil the Ukraine war is and how it's unwinnable. Here it is.
I mean, how are they even getting anybody to fight? 1.25 million dead?
I could pull. We show every week the forced conscription. They're beating, they're tackling people, men in the streets, beating them, forcing them into vehicles, and the fights are unbelievable. And what...
That's their recruitment? They beat the shit out of their people to fight for their country.
Yep. And so I've said this numerous times. I believe never in the history of warfare has a country won a war where they had to force their soldiers to join.
Fucking believable.
Yeah. No one wants to join. Ukraine Zelensky and Ukraine took a lot of criticism from Biden, Jake Sullivan, and Austin, that they did not immediately draft 18 to 23-year-olds. They started, I think, at 25. They went down to 23. They still haven't drafted, but they've done the selective service thing. But when Zelensky established martial law, he closed the borders. So 18 to 23-year-olds were not allowed to leave the country. He just changed that about 6 to 8 weeks ago. The day after he did it, every border crossing was swamped. All the 18 to 23-year-olds pretty much have either fled. Yeah. And what does that tell you? It tells you that the messaging, 1, 2, 3, what are we fighting for, doesn't make sense to the actual people who are supposed to do the fighting. So when you have these actual citizens of Ukraine fleeing, fighting for their lives, bystanders join in and help the recruits against these forced conscriptors. You'll see the massive fights, and women too come over. They start beating on these guys. Let them alone. Let them alone. This happens every day all across Ukraine. Because the logical why doesn't make sense. They see people disappear. They realize the truth is, whispered among the people of Ukraine, what's really going on, who's really trying to win this war, whose war it really is. And it's not Ukraine. It's the EU. It's the globalists. And they're the ones telling Ukraine, keep fighting to the last Ukrainian. But the Ukrainian people, the ones that are, the go-to-war age, are having nothing of it.
So they basically don't have a country.
No, they don't. It's not a real country, and that's not nothing against Ukraine. I love Ukraine. I love the Ukrainian people, but if you just take what Zelensky did. So first off, on Zelensky, in 2017, he became the lead in a comedy show, Servant of the People, which the producers of which famous producers in Hollywood, were two of the biggest oligarchs in Ukraine, multimillionaire, billionaire oligarchs. The billionaire decided, hey, and probably in cahoots with the Biden State Department and CIA, because they needed a candidate. They needed someone for the 19 election, and it had to be a stooge. So they decided, let's make Zelensky a candidate.
The United States aids Ukraine and her people so that we can fight Russia over there and we don't have to fight Russia here.
I like the structural path we're on here. As long as we help Ukraine with the weapons they need and the economic support, they will fight to the last person.
So the people planning this knew it would be a long, protracted war. They knew Iran would. They're making money off it. Europe's getting the draft ready. This is a total and complete nightmare, and it's all been done by design. Talk about male privilege. You get to go be conscripted to fight and die. Hey, InfoWars shuts down soon, but you can find the new show and all the feeds at our free app, AlexJonesApp.com.
Future may hold, InfoWars will always live forever. The fight will continue. Be sure to follow us on X at RealAlexJones and at AJN Live. And now you can download the #1 news app in the world. Go to AlexJonesApp.com and let the Democrat Deep State Party know that we will never be silent.
And share that link with your entire email list now. Joining us in 6 minutes, Victor Bout, elected official in Russia, high-level businessman, former political prisoner in the U.S., military expert, kind of an Eric Prince Russian-type counterpart. He is going to be joining us. There he is on screen right now, getting ready. So we look forward to that here. Be sure and remember, whatever AM and FM stations you're listening to us on, to tell everybody how to tune in. And if you're listening on the internet, tell everybody how you're tuning in and share it. That's how we reach new people. Now, we saw the Southern Poverty Law Center at the heart of the deep state indicted for running all the major white supremacist groups in the country to create division and set up a police state. Told you that decades ago. It's confirmed. We also have seen Fauci's head advisor covering up gain of function, the U.S. government under Obama creating COVID-19, indicted for hiding that and destroying evidence. Now, Leering Center, remember that? The Somali fraudsters, they all just got raided and indictments coming in today. This just now broke. So, massive developments. And I just call balls and strikes. I see a lot of terrible activity from Trump, a lot of promises broken with the Iran war, other things, but I'm also seeing now suddenly real movement. And I told you weeks ago when Patel came out and said, no, we're about to have real indictments. From my sources, Trump has told them all, you're fired if you don't do this. Well, who Trump needs to fire is the neocon advisors around him and Netanyahu coming in and lying to him and saying Iran will fall in 4 days. Now the UAE has left OPEC. Now they're saying 4 months till Iran falls because they're out of money. Trump is being lied to. And they're just roping us in to a deeper war. Just like you saw the Delta Force commander explain how NATO knew all along that Ukraine was going to lose and that it was simply a way for the EU to distract from its own criminal activity, it's unelected, and have a higher tax rate instead of a police state domestically. And then they delusionally think within 20 years Russia will fall, and then they'll divide Russia in 5 parts. That's the official unelected EU board's policy. Now, they have a parliament, as you know, but that's ceremonial. So we're going to look at Ukraine. We're going to look what happened in Hungary. We're going to be looking at what's happening in Romania. We're going to be looking at what NATO's up to. We're going to be looking at the Iran situation, where the top geopolitical expert on this, who's worked in all the major continents of the world for decades, about what he believes is going to come next. It's great that every Tuesday, the last few weeks, been able to get him on with us. This will be the last time Victor Bout is on with us as InfoWars. But the InfoWar continues on, but just the Infowars.com. We are shutting down Thursday night. They're cutting the power. Have private detectives come in to lock it up. Even though there's no court ruling yet, we got a bunch of injunctions, and who knows. But it's not been cry wolf. This has been going on. We've just survived so many attacks. But remember, Trump let the DOJ do this. Trump killed the investigation into this. And so that just is, a black eye for what they're up to. Let's go to break with the raid on the Somalis today.
Now, large-scale raids targeting federal fraud currently underway. Federal agents seen leaving the Quality Learning Center. And Brooke Taylor has more on that and what they're looking for. Brooke, good morning.
Hi, Bill. Good morning. Yeah, we have had a photographer there at the daycare since this morning, capturing video of those federal agents just going in and out of the building, collecting evidence as part of the DOJ's fraud investigation in Minnesota. Take a look at this video here. Sources tell Fox that federal agents are raiding about 22 businesses across Minneapolis this morning. And sources say many of them are tied to Somali-owned operations. All of this comes comes after that viral YouTube video from Nick Shirley. It was back in December. In that video, he visited different child care centers, and you'll remember they were either closed or there were just no children inside, despite receiving state child care funding. Now, the location that you're looking at right now, it's the Quality Learning Center. This is the daycare. It went viral. It blew up on social media because of a sign outside with learning.
All right, we'll be right back. We'll have more on this as it develops. Victor Boot is going to be our guest when we join all these stations in 60 seconds. Stay with us. All right, Victor Boot is our guest for the next 45 minutes or so. Then the great Mark Dice is going to be joining us, a longtime InfoWars colleague going back over 25 years here in the twilight of the original InfoWars. But this is not a victory for the bad guys. This is a defeat. They, according to court records, have spent $300+ million. The top Democrat law firm, Paul Weiss, at the direction of Obama, that's been declassified, trying to find a way to put me in prison since 2013. All part of a CIA, DOJ joint operation, partially declassified, admitted to in court, and Trump allowed his attorney general to kill the investigation by the weaponization task force leader, Ed Martin, 6 months ago. Just another sign. But they're raiding the Somalis today. They've indicted one of the main COVID bioweapon creator conspirators, David M. Marins, today. They're very close to indicting Fauci, I'm told. Well, you also saw the Southern Poverty Law Center indicted for running white supremacist groups. So hopefully we see some course change from Trump, because now the UAE has left OPEC. This is such a huge development. Also, conscription has gone to new heights in Ukraine, as internal poll numbers up to 85% of the public are against it. But they're put into this at gunpoint, really just to be targets to draw out Russian forces and as literal cannon fodder. The old saying was, the infantry is to be fed to cannons, meaning food, fodder is food, like horse fodder. Well, truly, they are feeding the Ukrainians into the Russian guns, just fighting the last Ukrainian. And we're 4+ years into this, and it's just spectacularly evil. We have all of that to go over. Marco Rubio says, well, we don't have any leadership that will work with us. There's only radicals left. That's an actual quote. What did he think was going to happen when he killed their leadership? Did you think they were going to put cream puffs in? Like they've been trying to kill Putin. Every expert agrees they'll get somebody even more hardline. It's madness. Oh, all we have is apocalyptic hardliners now. They'll never give up. Oh, that's why you killed their leaders? Israel told Trump to do that, though. They admit Israel did. Israel said they'd fall in 4 days. They knew that wasn't the case. So what is Israel really doing, and how do we counter this? So we can go into the OPEC issue, Iran, that first. We can get into the latest in Ukraine, Orban being, kicked out, obviously, by a NATO operation, where you see that going as things move so quickly. Victor Boot, again, if you just joined us, is a former political prisoner here in the U.S. for 10 years, major businessman, elected official at a regional level in Russia, and, of course, very famously a Russian, we came around before even Eric Prince, but a Russian Eric Prince is a good way to describe people that know who he is. But very hard to get him on any show. He comes on this broadcast because when he was incarcerated in federal prison for 10 years, he listened to me on AM radio. So I guess you could say we're old friends just from sharing ideas on air the last few years, but also back then he certainly knows the show. So, Victor, that's a long intro as usual. Those are my topics. You can go anywhere else you want first. Where would you like to start? At the end of the last hour, I played former Delta Force commander breaking down what a total and complete disaster the Ukraine situation is, but that NATO knew this was the case, and it's literally to destabilize not just Russia, but Europe and push the public deeper into debt. That's why Larry Fink is so incredibly excited right now about this war, because he openly says, oh, this will, create the Great Reset we want. They want people publicly poor. That is the plan. And people have to get their heads around this. Kiev attacks on Russian refinery, cutting global oil supply. Kremlin, yeah. And they've even been attacking other countries' pipelines. that ship Russian oil through it, which again is only going to intensify the global energy shock. But when you're the big central banks that have all this fiat currency to loan out, you want people in a bad position. So while we're working on getting Victor on the broadcast, I wanted to remind listeners that while we sit here and watch all of this tyranny unfold, the Great Awakening is here politically, not just here but around the world. So no matter what the globalists do, things are only going to get worse for them. We're in a fourth turning. It's a time of Great Awakening. These are societal trends that are rules, not just things that tend to happen. And so the globalists know that they're in a time of great resistance. They're going to throw wars at us, new viruses, societal fights, race division. So the Southern Poverty Law Center has been caught doing what they do, running the white supremacy groups. But at the end of the day, the whole thing is falling apart. All right, we've got Victor back with us. I think you heard most of my question via his Zoom link from Russia. Victor, where would you like to start first? Ukraine, it's all interconnected. Iran, the OPEC falling apart, maybe Trump and what you think about the Saturday event. Some people think that was staged, the attempted killing there with incredibly low security. Thank you, Victor Bout, for being here with us.
Hello, and greetings from Russia. So all these questions basically has one common baseline. They're all interconnected. And the question is, they all connected with this, globalist cabal who basically behind every crisis, behind every, armed conflict in the world. And it's a lot of the things happening. And this eventually also their plan before they put up this great reset, or establish the global control, they wanted to completely confuse us, create a situation which everybody gave up to understand what's going on. Confusion is one of their, arms. So let's go and, dissect, do the autopsy of really what's going on, because without very careful and little bit distance look on what's happened, without emotional too much involvement, only then we'll be able to understand the core issue, what's really going on this time. Let's start with the Ukraine. So Ukrainians understood that there is the two possible ways for Zelensky from this situation. He has a, little victory because the Orban government is gone. New government of the Magyar approved their, credit to Ukraine of 90 billion euro in exchange that Ukraine will open the oil pipeline to Hungary. So this is his small victory. His eventually strategic plan is just to wait till the midterm election in November, when the Trump become a lame duck, and eventually this will help him then to Trump would be more or less restrained, and then the European and the globalists will take control over financing of Ukraine, and he will again keep making money, keep doing a laundering operation for the globalists. And of course, as you mentioned, send his own people to the war to be killed, to be used as a cannon meat, because finally, the figures we see, this was exact what's going on in all Ukrainian city. The government has no any other way to recruit the people, just to basically catch them on the streets, put them in the bus. It's called busification in Ukraine, and it's a tragedy for the nation because they're not checking their papers, they're not asking whether they're doctors or doing some critical jobs. So this attitude of the Ukrainian regime just shows that they don't care about own population. In many cities, they're just grabbing, for instance, bus drivers, or even, there was a case when the doctor went to smoke after operation on the emergency room. He was grabbed by these people, sent to this mobilization, and only with the tremendous efforts of this medical personnel, they, explained him that he is actually operating doctor. What you doing? There would be nobody left. But for them, since this is a completely globalist project, they don't care. For them, war till the last Ukrainian is the only thing can possibly happen. So right now, Russian army is still moving, forward, despite, the old difficulties, because now new war is completely different from what anybody used to understand. It's a gray kill zone, roughly around 30 kilometers between two warring sides. There is very few cases when you come into traditional, old situation of tactics. Now, everything changing every 2 weeks. Now, Ukrainian deciding that on the summertime, they're preparing this counter-offensive in the southern front, where the three regions of Ukraine, Donetsk region, Zaporozhye region, and Dnipropetrovsk region are meeting. So they're pushing up, concentrating too much forces there, trying to get enough personnel. So they're thinking that they're gonna incline into the Russian defense line, and declare again the victory, mainly for the propaganda purpose. And when government do not care about their losses, of course you have a situation where the country basically has no future, because if you, with the population of Ukraine, which before the collapse of Soviet Union was roughly 54 million people, right now on different estimation, it's roughly between 25 or even 22 million. So think of this. For the past, since declaring independence in 1991, Ukraine just doubled, just halved of their population. This is a basically collapse and depopulation, which we know this is accordingly the globalist playlist, depopulation. Plus, Ukraine basically sold even if it's fertile soil, to BlackRock, another corporation, Cargill, who owns eventually majority of this.
And let me just stop you and back you up. The official plan of Europe is, for not just Ukraine, but all of Europe, replacement migration. So you have 1 million plus dead, and now they're literally replacing them with uneducated. They're bringing Africans, go like bringing doctors and scientists. No, they're bringing in military-age men by the hundreds of thousands with no skills. What are these African? But by the way, they don't get conscripted, though. What does just dumping Africans in Ukraine do? I mean, this is insane.
Well, so far they just tried to bring some African workers to replace a severe shortage of the labor, because anybody, including women, are grabbed to go at the front line and fight Russia, which is completely, disastrous. Ukraine, long time, about like 3 years already decided they're going to lose all their industries, they're going to lose all their, science, they're going to lose everything. And still, there is no way we can, create the condition to explain to this regime, illegal regime, to go and negotiate. Plus, bearing in mind that this conflict is only possible because of the support, or not even support, this basically proxy war of the all NATO, or all this total coalition of the willing, which is about 50 countries, including United States, who is still keeping a leading role, is a proxy war against Russia, because Ukraine cannot last alone. They don't have resources. Now, think of this. Everything in Ukraine, including pension fund, including salaries, including any public service, whatever left, salaries to officials, salaries to military, is paid only because this foreign aid coming in, which is, if not half, but definitely a big chunk of it are embezzled, stolen, laundered, whatever you name it. So for the regime, this is a business, and let me tell you, it's very profitable business. So Zelensky succeeded to corrupt not only European leaders who are showing to Kiev with this, victory lap, telling, oh, we visited Ukraine, who resisting, who fighting. And we know perfectly well, this visit was paid with a very lavishly, kind of honorarium for visiting the Ukraine, or another case, Zelensky providing hookers providing drugs. So he is trying to play a role of the small Epstein, trying to corrupt elite through his own way. We know from the Epstein files very well that Zelensky was mentioned there as a provider, human trafficker, who provided to Epstein underage girls. So what we're talking about. So he is from get-go the project of the globalist. And that's why his behavior is completely clear that he is not for the interest of his own country, not for the some settlement and development. He's just there to do what his masters told him to do. That's the issue. So what is the future? Well, future is very grim for Ukraine. I think there would be, after the conflict is over, not such country as Ukraine. We need to clean this last, stronghold of the Nazism. And eventually, this is also a flashing point where we know, in fact, that the Europe are still deep inside are dreaming of this complete control, complete dictatorship, complete, Nazism, because for Europe, I think this is only natural way where they can expand, when they can, enslave or conquer neighboring countries.
Well, they've had the deputy head of the commission say, we're bankrupt unless we can collapse Russia and divide it in pieces. That's not going to happen without a nuclear war. That's insane.
No, it's not happening. And look, we are under all possible sanctions. Against Russia, there is over 29,000 sanctions issued. We are most sanctioned country in the history of this planet, and we're still functioning. Everything works. Our economy, despite having a statement, slowed down because of policies of our central bank. Otherwise, we've been doing perfectly well. So for us, this sanction, was a good opportunity to cut off ourselves from the this Western domination, from this opening to the Western markets. At least a local producer was able to stop the production. And if, and I'm sure that government gonna sort it out, the situation which we have now with the slowdown, because they try to keep inflation intact. But
sure, but let's talk. Let's talk timelines here. I know you don't have a crystal ball, but in general, sure, they want to have another one of their failed offensives that they declare as a victory. They just push in a mile, later get kicked out. The media won't cover it. Probably launch more deep sneak attacks or stuff like Operation Spiderweb. But midterm, how long is this going to go on as this war just kind of settles in and the media becomes a back burner, but Russia continues to slowly move forward and burn up all of the NATO forces? What are the different scenarios here?
Well, there is several scenarios. First of all, look, Ukrainians definitely would be used like, a meat for this, cannon meat for this war until the last Ukrainians. When the Ukrainians is over, they have, Polacks, they have Romanians, they're going to throw them out. Then they're going to use Baltics, to see, because globalists don't care. Then the time will come for the, like Germany. And Germany now trying to prepare its own nation for the fight. They're talking about inscription. They're talking, forceful, so everybody, obligatory military service. They're talking about increasing their military spending, like several folds. And for them, again, they start remembering what their, grandfather was doing while serving in, SS troops and the Wehrmacht. So this is a renaissance of the neo-Nazism in Europe. And it's, believe me, will not end up very well. And everything, if we go to the root of this, we know perfectly well that even Hitler himself was a project of the globalists, because he was in very close tie with the British intelligence. Eventually, he was recruited by the British intelligence, and he was used, again, like Ukraine was used now, as a tool in the hands of the globalists. So, unfortunately, Ukrainian leadership...
By the way, slow down the Hitler thing, because that's in the mainline histories. Pulitzer Prize-winning books, but the general public doesn't know that. That's why the deputy Führer parachuted in with a treaty saying, you're not supposed to fight us in France. We have a deal. The King of England was a Nazi. He was actually German. Hitler thought he had a deal. Then, of course, Churchill, they removed Chamberlain and double-crossed him. It's just, that's actually mainline history, but almost no one knows that. that Germany was set up as a detonator to blow up Europe and Russia, and they intended to get Russia in the process, but they didn't. And so exactly, Ukraine is just 2.0 of that. That's why Hitler had the plan, because the British gave it to him, of the EU, 10 nations, unelected, with the king, Edward VIII, was supposed to be the head of the EU. All of that came out of Hitler and British intelligence. People don't know that. So spend some time on that.
Correct. Look, if we know from the history, from the latest disclosed, files, that before Hitler attack in the June 22nd of 1941, actually the France and Britain was ready to start attacking Russia and bomb it, and this plan was revealed. So think of this. So in all this play, trying to blame that actually Stalin started the war, he signed a separate deal with Hitler, then themselves tried to attack. So the Russia did only one thing correct, on this one, is going and fight actually for the entire humanity with the Nazism. Think of this, if Soviet Union, with all efforts, with the heroic efforts of every family who living in this territory, in this country, whether it's Russian, whether it's Ukrainian, whether it's a Belarusian, lost somebody in this war with the Nazis from 1941 till the 1945. And now we're having like almost, flashback where, again, the British playing their own game with the globalists. We know that after the war, Churchill was entertaining the so-called unthinkable plan, again, pushing Americans, let's go and attack Russia immediately. You have several, nuclear bombs. Let's bomb them to oblivion and capture the whatever, territorial resources they have. So if we're talking on this, the globalists playing on very long time. They are perfectly aware that they need to get their plan.
Stay there. Let's come back and finish up. This is absolutely historic if people don't know it. Basically, World War II never ended. And now there was a halftime until 5 years ago, and now we're in the third and fourth quarter. We'll be right back with Victor Boot. Stay with us. You can't make this up. So it's not Russian propaganda that the main heart of the Ukrainian force are neo-Nazis and that their grandfathers were Nazis, and those same battle lines have been drawn, and that the EU set this up to lure Russia in. Because remember, when you're the unelected EU that was actually a Nazi project, and you got the population against you waking up, you need a war to control them. They say that. They say our economy's war. And I saw Trump 2 weeks ago go, hey, we don't care about Medicare and Medicaid or child daycare anymore. We're about war. That's what we do now. That's a 180. And he hasn't said that with Ukraine yet, but militarily, he's still been backing it. So if you're unelected scum who weren't even in World War I like Hitler, at least he was a soldier, like the leadership they've got now that are all just the royal families of Europe that just gave up their crowns, but they're the owners of it, in this ancient war to take over Russia, it's like a dog that's been chasing something forever and just really wants it, or a bloodhound has its scent. Wars, these big regional historic wars don't ever really end. They just go into halftime, as I was saying. They say generals always fight the last war. That's because generally it's part of the same war. It's just a continuation of it. So that's why this is so really spiritual at the end of the day and so dangerous. So I want to finish up with his history you were giving out, and it'd be very simple. How does this end? Because if Russia is winning by attrition, but now they're scaling up for a decades-long war, obviously Russia doesn't want to end decades. How does this get shut down? We'd hope Trump would. But he's been compromised. So just finish up with the history and then what you think scenarios are, or what your advice would be for everybody to end this. And obviously, you're right. It's all a continuum of the larger global forces fighting each other. The latest on Iran, Victor Boot.
Well, as you said, scenario how it would be finished. First of all, during the last year Alaska meeting between the Putin and the Trump, this was agreed a certain, roadmap, and there was a proper arrangement how to settle it. And Russia was, very flexible to in fact, maximum accommodating and going to really build certain partnership. But for the past time, after this Alaska meeting, unfortunately, American side been not able to deliver on those promises. They said that they're gonna, really tackle the Zelensky regime and, restrain and force them to negotiations to sign a peace deal. And we know that all attempts actually was squatted and, basically sabotaged by the Zelensky and especially by the British, because not on their interest to do something which would stop this conflict from going on. For somebody, it's a death and destruction, but for these elites, it's basically nothing personal. It's just business. It's just money. So what is the scenario? Look, the quickest scenario when Trump administration especially really want to end this conflict very quickly, he can just, grab the phone and say to Elon Musk, hey, stop immediately providing, Starlink services to Ukrainians. That's number one. Second, call the Pentagon and give them orders not to share intelligence, would allow the Ukrainians to attack deep inside Russia. And these two main factors, which is now making Ukrainians, capable to continue the war. And then Europeans already run out of cash. For them to really fund this war, impossible with all crisis, especially now with the fuel crisis in the Middle East, with the closure of the Hormuz Strait. Despite that Ukraine trying to propagate, we start building our own missiles, our own drones, our own everything. No, it's all basically, masquerading European production under the Ukrainian, made in Ukraine, the label. But in the core, this is a complete project of the globalists which is going on. So in this case, this would be a very clear watershed moment. If the Trump really now in the bed with the globalists, then he would never stop this war, because for him, what's going wrong? He's still selling the armaments to NATO. If NATO find the money, pay to United States, United States too far from the conflict. This is a European conflict, and let's them, deal how they're gonna sort it out. But as we know perfectly well, exactly the United States is in a, kind of the assembling point of it. And if you press on this button, everything stops collapsing. This is number one. Well, if United States deciding, no, we leave status quo as it is, well, let me tell you what's going to happen. Economical crisis which happened in Iran, first of all, distracted all resources from the, Ukraine to the Israel, right? Now, Ukrainians even offered their own anti-drones personnel to be sent to Saudi Arabia, to the Bahrain, to Qatar, to UAE, and Zelensky went in this, selling visits all over, trying to sell and offer his services. But apparently, after they tried, UAE chased them out to say, no, you get out because your presence only makes the things worse. So this
let's
is
be clear, they also know they're selling weapons and money given to them by NATO and the U.S. and now reselling them. So let me bring up two big points for you to finish up where you see this going. I knew about this, but didn't report on it because it wasn't 100% out. It's confirmed.
Well,
go ahead.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. Ukrainians, first of all, selling quite a big chunk of all armament they're receiving on the black markets. We know that many systems and many, sophisticated like anti-aircraft and anti-tank missiles ends up with the Mexican cartels. They ends up with the Hamas. They flooded the black markets of Europe. So this would be a crime which will be spiked in Europe. So this is a side effects of it. But if we look, okay, what's going to be next? So with the worsening of economic situation, Europe will be bankrupt. They cannot anymore afford to fight this war. When this runs out, basically, then Russia finally would be able to finish everything pretty quickly and establish the control, creating a buffer zone between the NATO countries and Russia, and make sure that this kind of situation that Ukraine use as a, launchpad of a future war against us will not happening. Then we have to deal what we're going to do with Britain, what we're going to do with Europe, who are now trying to really get into the war with Russia in 2 years or 3 years. And this is a serious threat. If we look on the preparation which is going on in Europe, they are frantically trying to build up their own defense complex.
And by the way, they've said they're preparing a 250,000 or 500,000 person army. You're not just saying that from Americans that have been under a rock. They've been saying for a couple of years they're gearing up for direct war with Russia.
Correct. And this is their leadership. The question is whether they are able economically to afford to do this war, because we know perfectly well any war is first of all economy. Can you afford it, or you just got, you know, a unproperly prepared for the war? Then you're going to suffer a very, very significant, you know, disaster if you go into this war economically unprepared, when your industry are not able to produce enough armaments, enough munition, when your medical care cannot treat all the wounds, when your system are not working to prepare everything your army needs. So this basically would be end of the Europe we know it. And now
we have Europe going along with the U.S. blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline that supplied a large part of its gas. That'd be like if I was starving to death, cutting my leg off to feed myself.
That's basically, yeah, it's not only suicide when they're killing themselves, but it's also basically, cannibalism, but when the cannibal eating his own flesh. Yeah, that's exactly, it's very perfect analogy. Now, coming back to the, Middle East and especially Iranian situation, it's really, really becoming more and more interesting. Just yesterday, I guess Rubio said that the closure of Hormuz Straits, it's like, using economical nuclear bomb. So think of this. If Iran lost, so how come it has now this big red button when they can press any type of economical nuclear bomb? Because the reverberation of economy we discussed with you many times would be
which the Pentagon told Trump would happen and which he ignored.
Correct. Yeah, he ignored. And now there is an issue. So plus, what was very strange, that the Trump didn't want to use the last chance with the Iranian to really negotiate. They start to pushing them from get-go unacceptable by the Iranians conditions. Iranians are very smart negotiators. You need to take them seriously. You need not to play this circus. You need to be, at least consistent of what you are talking. And if you change your demands or your list of the,
or if you blow them up when they come to meet. That's why this happened the last month. Correct. They say, we're not meeting with you. You don't deal in good faith. Then Trump goes, I'm canceling the deal. I've won, because he knows they've canceled it on him. It's like a 5-year-old.
Correct. It's just there. So this situation definitely creating more damage, including United States. As we speak, I just saw 1.5 hour ago, so the average price has already spiked to $4.15. It's a huge, increase. And now we're talking about, okay, so how far economy of United States can afford it? Well, Iranians definitely can withstand it, because even now the gas price in Iran is like what? For the couple dollars, you can fill up an entire tank. So guess what? You think this population go do the regime change just to get a regime, pro-Western regime, who gonna charge them $4 a gallon? I don't think so. And so they definitely fail on all their objective, because the Trump, despite the opinion of the Pentagon and all other, professional people who understanding what's going on, deciding, well, if Bibi Netanyahu calls me and said, hey, this is the right time, we definitely finish this conflict in 3 days, maybe maximum a week, let's go hit them, leadership, people will rebel, will be, revolution, we install our own, control puppet and everything, and we grab their natural resources. So these plans are, gone to nowhere. Okay, at least face the reality, be serious and admit that this was a wrong, and try to get a proper exit of this situation, including, the situation when you can still save your face. But think of this. so many countries now suffering consequences of this economical disaster. So how many now nations will understand that the real perpetrator, the real reason of their economical hardship is actually Trump, who decided that he has a full right to attack the Iran, which will cause closure of Strait of Hormuz, which was...
And that'll cause the energy crisis, fertilizer crisis, and then here, the inflation crisis that'll kill his economic plan, which makes BlackRock real happy, which makes the UK happy, which brings me to King Charles being here right now. But look, UAE to leave OPEC amid Hormuz oil crisis, so they're not a target anymore. Now they're talking about kicking our bases out. This is a big victory for Iran. This is a big deal. What does this mean?
Correct. Well, first of all, OPEC since long ago was a kind of the cartel who tried to keep the energy price right. And one thing, they play a positive role, because if you create situation where the price of oil will drop below the production cost, then the industry would be bankrupt. So it doesn't help. So the price must be fair. It must be affordable at the same time and allowing industry to prosper. So this should be a very perfect balance. So, but OPEC since long time played a very different role, and since other countries was not part of it, because Russia was not part of OPEC either. So whether they're leaving or not, look, these days, all international organizations, starting with the United Nations, starting with the World Trade Organization, become just a joke. So let's say that them leaving or staying in OPEC do not really, change much of it. But
it is a message distancing themselves from Israel's war. Because I'll blame Trump for making the final decision, but at the end of the day, we should blame Trump, but we should blame Israel for lying even more.
Correct. And now Israel not only, frame and set up the Trump, but it's also frame and set up UAE, because eventually they've been sharing their plans, because UAE provided necessary logistic support, provided its own soul, so the Americans, eventually Israeli, can launch, their operation from the UAE against Iran. That's why Iran answer way more harder on the UAE than even on Israel, okay? This we will, of course, all the facts we will know later on, but this is, I guess, the subject, the, leadership of United Arab Emirates has to do their homework and figure out.
No, I totally agree. So now that Iran's winning the war of attrition, I think that's fair to say. What are the scenarios here? Because I think Trump will still be pig-headed. The Iranians back against the wall. So the only thing they have is using the big red button of the Strait of Hormuz. Now they're saying, 4 months they'll fall, the White House is saying, with no real evidence of that. What's a good scenario versus a bad scenario? Just like you said, yes, Trump, when he first got in a year and a half ago, did kill intelligence for a week because Zelensky was so rude to him on the phone, and you saw the lines completely collapse because it was the U.S. directing it all, as we know. Basically, they're just proxies. Since then, he cut it back a little bit to make Brzezinski behave. Brzezinski would say what he wanted to hear, but go right back to what he was doing. But Trump, at a certain point, famously said, well, if I'm not getting a Nobel Peace Prize, to show really how petty the mindset is, I thought it was a joke when he said it, says, I'm not getting a Nobel Peace Prize, fine. Let the war continue and we'll make money off the weapons. And I was told by a billionaire a month before, he said, you don't understand, that knows them all. Stop there. Because you don't understand. Bill Gates, Bill Clinton, Trump, they're all obsessed because they're boomers with Nobel Prizes. I'd throw it in the trash can. Now, they gave Obama one, Henry Kissinger one. It's a joke. And would have Hitler give me an Iron Cross first class? I don't throw that in the trash. So, but the point is, he's obsessed with that. So he, and later, what Candace Owens said was true because he later admitted it. Not that he called her, I know he did. He calls her up and says, Macron says he'll end the war if you stop saying his wife's a man. Now, whether that's true or not, it's a man, I don't care. The point is the pettiness. Trump now puts out Truth Socials saying, how dare you say she's a man, she's more beautiful than you, you need to stop. Macron will work with me if you just stop. What is the president doing calling a talk show host saying they'll end the war if you just stop saying that his husband's a man or his wife's a man? And so then I got that story confirmed, and then it just happened again where we're learning that all they care about is getting attention, and everything is done just for attention and just for awards. And so to have Macron keeping a war going, whether it was true or not, saying just do this and I'll end a war, it shows the type of leadership. Then you have Netanyahu, people behind him, obviously, BlackRock, but for him, so he doesn't go to prison, keeping it all going. It's all these insane little special interests who are not serious people and who are engaged in this. I mean, that's a long story, but that is confirmed.
Correct, you're absolutely right. You see, we have people with a huge ego who are very easily manipulated when you start talking about whether it's a Nobel Prize or size of the hands or something big and beautiful and gold-plated. So this is about Trump personality. But perfectly well, we're talking about, you know, if we just watch and hear what the Trump's saying, then we're completely confused. We need to basically analyze what he is practically doing, because majority of his saying, you know, either he forgetting himself or he flipping every time. So there is no any consistency on his kind of the, you know, plan. I'm not sure whether he has himself some strategy, at least for himself, what he's a finally end game, what he's playing, how he gonna get out of this situation. So this all heretic behavior, it's either distraction, you know, or cover operation for something he's doing. And now let's see this visit of the King of United Kingdom, the Charles III one. It's a very funny side because look, it's happening just after this so-called attempt, which happens on this gala dinner for the White House correspondent, which is still, you know, confusing and not clear how even that can happen. And this, then why the king coming to see the Trump? First of all, it will feed his ego because look, now you're talking to the royalties, because Prime Minister of the Britain basically is a done deal. Eventually, he will force to submit his resignation, you know, in a couple days or weeks, and then the king, at least one who actually can talk to Trump as the one of the front men of the globalist. Remember that the British royal family for past at least 500 years are, you know, remaining the same, and they basically involved of everything which happened for the last 500 years. So here, it's very important for the future of America and for the Trump, how he gonna deal with the globalist, whether he
and interrupt. Let's remember, King Charles's uncle was Edward VIII, the literal Nazi king to set up the EU, who had to advocate in World War II. He was in Germany when it started, had to flee to Spain to get out. So these are not nice people.
No, that's not nice people, and we know that they killed their own cousin, which was the last Tsar of Russia, Nicholas II. It's the same family. They've been intermarried, you know, so they don't really care. There is nothing else. Maybe such a kind of the reptilian, I would say, sentiments they have even to each other. So now
exactly, they've bred sociopathic psychotics into the genetics.
Correct, correct. And now we have the situation. Very soon we will understand what was, you know, agreement between Trump and the King of the UK regarding the future. For me, the question whether Trump will jump in a bed with the globalists completely, and now we will see that he will be fully and fully under their control, not only from the Bibi Netanyahu, he also by this or certain other ways, you know, in bed with the globalists, you know, because we know with you perfectly well from the studies, and you was talking about this very long, that the Zionism and the Israel is again project of the globalist, okay? Now we're seeing you have Israelis who are controlling White House with the one hand, and now we see the visit of the king, and if they would declare, you know, again, era of the unprecedented partnership, cooperation, blah, 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 we know then the Trump now in bed with the globalists completely. So what it means for the world, or it means for the global conflicts, well, then I would say empire is attacking, and then the resistance, who are you with everything you did for the past, you know, how many years InfoWars existed? What, 20 years?
27 for InfoWars, on air 32.
Yes, almost 27 years. And we are in the final days when finally Trump, flip on you and decided to give this to Onion. What kind of thank you for all efforts, for all what you did for his first term, for the second term, but this is the history. I guess you would survive and keep the best of InfoWars in a new platform. And people who are going to take it, they cannot do nothing with this. I guess this will burn them like the, if some relics from the church will be burning hands of the Satanists. So this, certain. Now, let's summarize because we have a very short time. I guess we, again, in the very difficult times, it's almost epic. And it all depends if the people who would be forced or who would be giving orders, understanding their responsibility, that, there is a still constitution, there is a still their, belief in God, and they know perfectly well what is right, what is wrong. So we're seeing that in this situation, the people has to really grab the decision in their own hands and do what they feel the right under the rules of God, not under illegal orders of these globalists. This is number one. And second one, let's hope that sooner or later, these people run all out of the money, out of the ammunition, and Russia would be able to finish the conflict in Ukraine, restrain the Europe, clean this up of the Nazism, treat them like in a hospital, after this relapses of this disease, and we will see that finally Middle East can come to the more stable, region, because think of this, if all this country cooperate, if not only Russia, America, but if we will establish really a proper, very balanced relation between countries, minding all nations.
We could truly have the golden age. Real